All right. So up next, you know what? He is the newest member to the High at Nine team, and he's repping the great state of Colorado. He's got more than a decade of regulated industry experience in data, operations, compliance, and technology. And you know what? He's currently on a project called Grind, a cannabis lifestyle brand for serious and professional athletes. I'd like to hear more about that. Coming to the stage now is Soham Shah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And actually, Grind is a perfect segue to today's story, which is about cannabis for collegiate athletes. So, as it turns out, some researchers at a couple different universities did a study on the impact that cannabis legalization in a state has on those colleges' ability to recruit various athletes, and they focused on collegiate basketball and collegiate football. What they found was that colleges that are recruiting for basketball have seen a jump of an average of almost 4 slots on the recruiting rankings, while football teams have dropped almost 3 spots. So there's a couple caveats to this story. For one, this study was not conducted based off of survey data, so it's not considered conclusive. It is really just pointing out a couple hypotheses about the impact that legalization has on college athletic recruiting. But I think it reflects, one, the stances of both of those professional leagues. So the NBA, for example, this past year ratified a new collective bargaining agreement, which allows, first of all, removes cannabis completely from the list of banned substances and what they're tested for. And it also created some guidelines to allow current NBA players to invest in and promote cannabis companies and brands, which is a huge step in the right direction. There's no other professional league or sport on the planet that allows that right now. The NFL, on the other hand, still does test for cannabis. Their collective bargaining agreement that was ratified, I believe, in 2020 increased the threshold for how much cannabis you could have in your system and not trigger a positive test. So they're also moving in the right direction. But, you know, these different impacts that we see on collegiate recruiting kind of seem to reflect each of those professional leagues' policies. Overall, it's just a step in the right direction. I would say we see a lot of different movement when it comes to cannabis in professional sports. The MLB a couple years ago announced a partnership with one of the largest and most well-known CBD brands on the planet. That's Charlotte's Web. That was a league-level deal. Additionally, a couple other teams have announced team-level partnerships as well. The UFC recently announced that they're going to stop. They've stopped testing completely, and they haven't stopped testing, but they've stopped punishing fighters for having a positive marijuana test. And now we even see the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency has been urging the World Anti-Doping Agency to amend their laws on cannabis after our legendary runner Sha'Carri Richardson was suspended from Olympic competition. So yeah, this is, I think, something that's super interesting. Grind being a brand that's targeted for cannabis athletes. You know, this is something that hits home to me. My partners in that are former collegiate football players and former NFL players. So seeing how this is impacting college recruiting is interesting. I think it's also going to be very interesting to see what happens with NIL and cannabis for collegiate athletes. And, you know, it's probably not going to be imminent, but I think at some point in the near future, once some of that stigma continues to dissipate, that we might see collegiate athletes being able to do NIL deals with cannabis brands. So yeah, I'd love to hear what the rest of the team has to say.
First and foremost, LeBron James, if you want to represent profit, just tap in with me and I got you. No, for real though, like, and Rico I know can relate to this. Like when we came up playing football and stuff, we watched so many like just superb and magnificent athletes get like gunned down for cannabis use. I remember Randy Moss getting kicked out of Florida State. I mean, Randy Moss getting kicked out of Florida State and the kid not being able to play football because he used cannabis. And this is one of the greatest receivers of all time. We would have missed out on that.
Man on the field, one of the greatest athletes, not even just a receiver, not even just a football player. He's one of the greatest athletes.
Yeah. Freak of nature talent.
And Ricky sacrificed his professional career because he refused to be bullied around because of his stance and his use on cannabis. And he, again, was Heisman Trophy winner out of Texas. You know, one of the most prolific running backs in the league at the time, and had multiple failed drug tests, and eventually took the suspension. I think he went to Europe for a little bit, and eventually he just said fuck it and retired. He was like, I'm not going to be bullied anymore. And I've met him a couple times. He has his brand, the Heisman. I've seen him at a couple events, and the one thing I had to tell him was just thank you for taking a stand. And like, he put his commitment to the plant of cannabis over his love for the game of football, his desire to make money playing professional football, whatever else that he could have come from that endorsement deal. So, big props to Ricky on that.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment.
Yeah, like you were saying, man, like the list is endless of people who have been messed up, and their careers have been derailed for this stuff.
Well, even but not even about professional athletes, but just average Americans, people that would have been like amazing inventors, or people that would have been heroes in wars or whatnot, all sitting in jail because of cannabis and draconian laws, and we don't know what we have missed out on as a country or even as a culture by having these people locked up.
And
you could take that argument even further and apply that to access to equal education and healthcare and stuff like that. I know, Jason, that might not be where you wanted to go at that point, but
I don't see how that conflates with that.
I know this is one study, and causation is not a correlation, and vice versa there. However, it will be interesting to see these numbers over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And if we see the actual tide, rolling over from Alabama because of their draconian weed laws.
I see what you did there.
Into states,
I see what you
into
did
states
there.
that actually do allow, do have legalized or decriminalized access.
Yeah, let's see what my Wildcats do this year.
Oh boy,
what's that? What you got on?
Let's see what my Wildcats do. University of Arizona, we're a top 5 team. They legalized recently.
A little stronger. I never lost to Arizona Wildcats, but it's the same, man.
Hey, since we're all repping here, I'm gonna rep the bottom. Then I'm gonna go Cal Bears. What's up?
Let's go. A big shout out to my man.
You know what's funny is I had
Marshawn representing the greatest athlete of all time. My favorite.
Beast mode.
I had friends that I played high school football with that both went to both of those schools and then went on to the NFL afterwards.
Yeah, if I were a recruit right now, a big shout out to NIL program if they can actually get paid off of their name and likeness.
Yes.
Now, if I was a recruit, if I was a 3, 4, 5-star recruit right now, like 100%. 100%. I do not know. I can say this now, like 25, 26 years later. I say this now. I do not know any top tier athletes who weren't smoking in the off season, who weren't smoking in their downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the NBA, I think it's Matt Barnes. There's a couple retired players that have thrown out some numbers. Anecdotal shoot from the hip guess is that something like 85% of active NBA players regularly consume cannabis during the season.
Yeah.
And the NFL is probably closer to like 40 or 50%.
Well, NBA has always had the easiest drug tests, you know what I'm saying, or lack thereof drug tests. And NFL's had
the whole damn league.
Yeah, and exactly. They already know what it is, and they've already came out about it and whatnot, and made some comments.
And I mean, the NFL too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When I had a panel back in this is 2017, and I had Big Al, Big Baby, Stack 5, Matt Barnes, and Baron Davis on for the first NBA panel ever, and they were talking about their experiences and how Steven Jackson was he was the dope man in the league. And Kenyon Martin was there, and he said his career.
Kmart.
Kmart said he thought his career was over, and he's like, you know what, fuck it. He had only played. He was averaging about 13 minutes that season, and had like 2 points going into halftime. He said, fuck it, I'm gonna hit this joint from Stack, and he said he hit the joint, and he scored 14 points in the second half.
Oh, man.
Closing it out in the rest of the season. He said he hadn't played like that in years. So big shout out to weed and the medicinal.
He smoked that focus strain,
helping the greatest become greater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny. Yeah, like I said, with Grind, we've gotten to interact with some of these guys, and hearing them laugh when you tell them, like average person you talk to about cannabis and sports, they're like, oh yeah, I could see cannabis, maybe some edibles or something, but smoking is bad, right? I'm like, you're tripping, because your favorite athletes are smoking a fat blunt before they go into practice and before they go into their game.
Yep.
killing it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.